I summoned you here not to grovel. Be careful not to choke on your aspirations.
I felt Vader deserved better lines than that. For all of you who have been watching everybody else's Rogue One spoiler review, this is my spoiler review. I've given people ample time to go out and watch this film. That's what you're supposed to do. But now in the social media, everybody's got to have it now. You see someone do a movie review, and then 25 minutes later, here comes the spoiler review. It is ridiculous with this I gotta be first all the time. And they don't give you quality. They just rush to give it to you first. The first time you do a movie review, it should be the first watch, your first initial response to the film. When you do a spoiler review, you have seen the film at least probably 2 to 3 times. So now you have a full understanding of the film. So when you break it down, you don't have to put up any filters, any barriers. You can just go all in and say what you felt about the film. So that should at least give people time to even check the film out, to even watch it. And then give yourself time to go back and cover things that you may have missed. With that being said, we move forward with this review. Now, from the very outset in the start of this film, I noticed something. When the crawl didn't come up, and it caught me by surprise. It just shocked me. And you hear that whole score, and they just showed the planet, and I'm like, wow, that was strange. And now I'm like, okay, well, they're saying right now we're our own movie. We're not Star Wars. We're Star Wars, but a different Star Wars. In case this movie fails, they'd be like, look, we had our own thing. So we're not going to do the crawl. Then they go right to the action, and the scenes were great. You know, with Erso and Krennic when he comes down there. And that whole scene seemed like, my gosh, when they're talking, these guys seem like, man, like what happened to make him go into exile to hide? And he's saying, look, the work has stalled. We need you to come back. So now you know that they have had a past, that he used to work there, and something has made him go out and hide in and bring his wife, his kids, and his daughter there. And they've been there for a while now. And they thought they pretty much didn't need him anymore. But now they feel like they've reached a point where they need him to come back. So that they went there to bring him and summoned him back. Now, for some reason, there's a doll of a stormtrooper there. Like a little doll of a stormtrooper. And one of the troopers find this doll. Now, this doll of this stormtrooper lets us know that they must have had these dolls when they were on the whatever plantation they was back in the Empire. But if you're watching this film, you wouldn't know. There's a book called Catalyst that details everything that happened beforehand. See, now, not reading this book and watching this film, there's a lot of holes in here. You're like, wow, like, well, what happened there? Why is this happening? And what is the situation? But by reading Catalyst, I fully understand a lot of these things. And the fact that Erso was deceived by Krennic when he thought they were building something that wasn't a death-killing machine, but something that was going to create an energy for the poor. So when he finds out what the really intentions were, he rebels and leaves and goes into exile. Now, with this situation here, in this film, I'm looking at it and I'm watching it play out, and they have the scene where her mom gets killed and little Jyn Erso goes and hides. Then Saw Gerrera finds her, and here comes the crawl. Boom! The little cheesy crawl. I'm like, the little Rogue One thing. Then it cuts away, and they go until she's an adult. So now you can see she's just this rough, rugged adult, rebellious, don't really like anything, and they rescue her because a pilot comes there, and again, it ties back into Catalyst as to why this pilot wants to all of a sudden, come here. It ties into the aspiration of her father, who gives him this idea, but of hope, and there's more to you than just what's happening here. Go out into the world, and when you go out in the world, go out and follow your heart, and to put him on the path, because he's the key. He's the guy that has to come there to give the message that he has this video, this encrypted video that gives the instructions on how to destroy the Death Star. See, what this movie did well was that it filled in the gaps from episode 4. That was the main plot of this. Because Star Wars fans always wanted to know, like, we enjoyed the first Star Wars, but we also thought, like, that's pretty stupid. They put a butthole on the planet, and anybody throws something in the middle of the butthole, it blows up the planet. Why would they have that there? So, in this film, we find out it was done purposely as a way to destroy it. He said, well, I built a technical flaw in there, that if it causes a chain reaction in there, it'll explode. And we always known the people who got the information out died trying to give them that information, those plans to the Empire. As we see, episode 4 is basically Darth Vader chasing the plans around, and the plans are going back and forth, and all of these different things, and they don't have the plans. They need the plans. The plans is here. Get me those plans. I need those droids. So episode 4 had all these different gaps. It was so good to see what happened to some of these characters, and the ones that did survive end up going right back into battle, because episode 4 is like the next day, basically. These guys are right back in it. It was continuous. The problem I had was with some of the introduction of characters. It switches from like, hey, my name is such and such, and switches to another character. Then you really don't know anything about these characters. You just know their names, and like, okay, he used to fight in the Jedi battles. Was he always blind? Did he get blinded in the battles or the attacks before the purge of the Emperor? And you don't know. You see Rogue 5 get blown up. That's how Luke Skywalker ends up becoming Red 5 in this movie. You start seeing Red 1 or Red Leader and everyone else that was in there. The way they did the CGI for that was great. And then you see the Blue Squadron that we never saw in episode 4. That's because the whole Blue Squadron was wiped out, because they all got stuck on the planet when the city of Scarif got blown up at the end. So my thing was this. I kind of had some, man, I'm trying to figure out how in the world was a lot of this stuff happening on the planet Scarif. The action scene was great. I didn't like the cheap AT-AT. It looked like people wanted to see an AT-AT again, so they brought this AT-AT in, and then this AT-AT was so easy to be destroyed. And I'm like, did you know how long they had to fight this thing on Hoth? So maybe this was the prototype of what they was going to make for an AT-AT, because this was destroyed so easily that I'm like, wow, that was quick. They just up and destroyed him. And I didn't like the way that went down. All of this I am the Force is with me, I am the Force is with me. I was like, okay, this is too Disney. And all of this, whoa, was that your foot? You know, I'm like, you know you're going to get some Disney lines in there. I could live with that, but my thing is, they said, okay, well, you got to go hit the switch for us to be able to send the transmission. He sends the switch, he walks past all this gunfire, because the Force, I guess, guided him there. And once he hits the switch, there's a big explosion right there. So I'm like, that should have destroyed the radio tower. It killed him, but it didn't destroy the radio tower? I don't get it. Then Jen Orso, at the end, she's on the platform, the catwalk. She repositions the antenna. The antenna gets blown up right then and there. I watch it get blown up, and she sends the transmission still with a blown up antenna? How does she do that? I said, wow. That's when I know there's been a lot of rewrites for this film. Because you look at the situation where in the trailer you see the X-Wing fighter, or not the X-Wing fighter, but the Empire's version of the wing fighter. It comes up while she was on the platform in the trailer. That never happens in the movie. There's so much stuff in the trailers that is not in the film. Darth Vader looking at the plans, that's not there. None of those scenes are in that movie, which you could tell the DVD is going to be loaded with a lot of stuff they probably pulled out and reshot. Like the hallway scene with Vader at the end to bridge episode 4 into the end of this film. The way they were running with the material, the way it was analog, and how the file was so big they couldn't download it. All of these things were great. The way Darth Vader looked, I didn't really like his dialogue because it wasn't vintage Vader. But at this point, he was aggravated because he had. Now we see why he was so aggravated when episode 4 comes on and they're shooting at Leia's ship, and they come on board, and she's trying to come with we're on a diplomatic mission. No, you're not. You're a traitor and part of the Rebel Alliance. Take her away. Now you see why he was so into it when he got on board, because of what happened here. He shows up late to the action. Everybody's retreating at this point. They already got the plans. Once he finds out that they had beamed the transmission to one of those transports, he boarded that ship immediately. And once he boarded the ship, that was it. Look, they got beamed up a transmission. Vader gets a squad, they go on board and just wreak havoc. And Vader has the lightsaber scene in the hallway where he's using the Force, he's slashing people around. It looked impressive. It looked like vintage Vader. Because in episode 4, you rarely see Vader use the lightsaber, or if he used the Force, he wasn't doing it the way he did it in Rogue One. He would mostly grab them and lift them up with his bare hands, then use the Force to grab them and throw them. He was just powerful, or he would just raise his finger and just choke somebody. I find your lack of faith disturbing. All of those lines that he had then were great. And episode 4, that in Rogue One, I felt when him and Craddock had that little bar back and forth, I felt the dialogue could have been better. I really didn't like that "be careful not to choke on your aspirations" line. I just felt that was a little segued a little bit. It was nice, but it was like a setup punch. And I had no problem with the Tarkin. People talk about CGI. It's CGI. Of course, Peter Cushing's dead. But the fact that we got to see Tarkin in the film, it felt like Tarkin. The voice felt like Tarkin. Some people are just so perfectionist. It should be perfect. I saw Planet of the Apes that was perfect CGI. Do you know Planet of the Apes? That's like basically dark black. Okay, the ape is gonna look really good when you don't have to shade that much. I mean, when you don't have to see so much. I'm like, that CGI is perfect because of the shade. They're very dark. All you have to really do is focus on a couple of features. Where with Peter Cushing, there's a lot of wrinkles that you have to put in there. This was a very expensive process in the filmmaking, but it was very key and very crucial to the film to have Peter Cushing in there. And his family gave the okay for them to use his likeness as in this format. Plus, they get a check. So they used a British actor to play this role. And this British actor did a great job, I thought, as far as putting everything on the platform and letting it be known throughout the rest of the world, like putting them on a big stage. And the guy sounds like Peter Cushing. So that's actually him doing the voice. That's not a Peter Cushing like remake. It's that British actor. He had the whole body, the facial frame, so it worked. And I felt like, wow, this is really Peter Cushing in there as Tarkin, and you get to see the sinisterness in Tarkin. It's like, look, I'm taking over for your invention. It was my idea. You got problems going on because the treachery came from your friend over there, Urso, who made this weapon. So I want a demonstration to make sure it at least works. Because your friend is leaking out information. He wanted to make sure there was no sabotaging going on with the project. Because the guy is sending information to the rebellion. And that's why Vader was there. So that's why he wanted to check the transmissions, see what was going on with the rebels. That's the reason why he was on the base. So a lot of things added up. I just felt like at some points it was drug on a little too much. They had conversation there, but it was so boring that, that's just what it was. It was just boring for a while. It's like when you got 10 to 20 minutes where there's like, okay, it's like a whole lot of dialogue, nothing really connecting. That's how you know the pacing is off in the film. Rogue One had that, but the ending makes up for it because it was so epic of a scene, that it just grabbed everybody, and you were so psyched up that you ran home and popped in episode 4 right away because you wanted to have that feeling continue. Like, man, it's continuing on through episode 4 and I get to follow it, and that's what's so great about it. And then the fact is, with the success of this film now, they can make others. You could see a film in between episode 4 and Empire Strikes Back, which they've talked about doing. And they talked about doing a film in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So there was a lot of things that happened in between with Luke Skywalker and his progression to how he became so strong with the Force without, how he made his lightsaber, how he went and trained himself before actually going back to Dagobah to train with Yoda. So when he decided to go back to finish his training, Yoda told him he knows all that he needs. He knew everything. But he wasn't a Jedi yet. In order to be a Jedi, he was going to have to face his greatest challenge and overcome it to become a Jedi. And his greatest challenge was Vader. So it was very interesting at that point because I think that at this point, I think Rogue One is going to be one of those films you look at as a great staple film to bridge all the other ones together, that you'll feel comfortable putting it in between, right, before episode 4. You'll start off with Rogue One. I think you will feel really comfortable with doing that. But now it's got everybody revving and buzzing about episode 8 because there's so much mystery to it. So I advise everyone go out and read Catalyst. And then it should fill in a lot of blanks you may have about this film. It was good to see the ghost ship from the Star Wars Rebels, the animated series. And Saul Guerrero, I think they just brought him in there just to say, okay, look, we put him in the film, I didn't like the little blob monster scene with the pilot. That could have been on the editing room floor. I mean, it was totally unnecessary. Did not need the tentacle monster thing that reads the mind. And that seemed like Disney trying to force a character into a film. Like, we need something merchandising. We need to have a little monster-like character, like a little blob thing. Yeah, kids will buy it. So I don't know how many of those toys they're gonna print up, but they need to just throw the whole thing out. Like, I have not seen Dex from Attack of the Clones. Hey, how deep your pocketbooks are. I don't need to see that toy. I don't. You got one of them cloner darts. This guy at the diner knows about all of this stuff. I mean, some of the mistakes that were made in these films. What could I say? But it's your boy Carcino. I'm out. Don't forget to subscribe and follow the playlist.